Hello and welcome back to Disney Journey. As always, I'm still retired Imagineer Jim Scholl, and on this episode, I want to talk about Indiana Jones. Now, Indy's been in the news recently with the announcement that he's going into tropical America in Animal Kingdom. Now, this ride will be similar to the ones that are in Tokyo Disney Sea and in Anaheim, California. But I'm not talking about those Indies. I'm talking about the roller coaster version. So let's get started.
It's hard to understate the impact that Indiana Jones had, not just for movie theaters, but for the entire Disney company. It first appeared at a Disney park in Disney MGM Studios, not as a ride, but as a stunt show, an epic stunt show. It occupied a very large open air theater, although it was covered, and it was unique because Disney had never done anything not on this scale. This was something that usually was associated with other parks, not a Disney park. It was the set pieces that separate Indiana Jones from the stunt shows in every other park, because never before had anything been done on this scale, combining moving set pieces, explosions, effects with acting. And that made it unique and special, and it was popular from day one in the park. Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular has been there from day one, back when this park was called the Disney MGM Studios, to today when it's the Disney Hollywood Studios. Through it all, Indy has survived and thrived. Based on the success, it's reasonable to assume that Indy would appear elsewhere, and he did. He appeared next in Euro Disneyland because as far back as the original Sam McKim Fun Map, Euro Disneyland showed an expansion area there in Adventureland. And if you look close in the 1992 Fun Map, you'll see there, in their version of Adventureland, a jungle. There beyond Adventure Isle, there's a temple. And in that temple is, of course, our old friend Indiana Jones. Now, this version would be based upon the second movie, Temple of Doom, and it drew from a lot of the different set pieces in that film. The question was, what set piece would they draw from and how would they do it?
It's uncommon that a Disney park would have an off-the-shelf ride, but they did exist. For example, the Astrojets in Tomorrowland in the 1950s in Anaheim, that was an off-the-shelf ride. In theory, you can define off-the-shelf as if you are a vendor, you can sell a ride in your catalog. You'll sell it in pink, blue, red, but somebody who buys it gets what you're selling.
Just like combining that tasty treat of chocolate and peanut butter, if you took an off-the-shelf roller coaster and combined it with Temple of Doom, you ended up with this, the Temple of Peril. This concept artwork shows a lot of the exterior show scenes, unfortunately, never built. The location planned for the future Temple of Peril was across from Adventure Isle. There, from the forest, would be looming the temple. And there, once guests made their way, they would be greeted by this old ruin. Kind of an unnamed, unspecified group of people who built this. Well, they're actually built by Imagineers, but, well, you get the idea. But it did have a lot of tents and it had a lot of flame. And it had a loop. Now, the loop was significant because this was the first roller coaster in any Disney park that fully inverted the guests during the ride. And it was a lot of fun. What was also interesting is the queue led people directly to the loop. So they'd see the loop and they saw it defined by this stone arch. And that was a brilliant trick because it looked as if for the guests who were climbing the stairs to the station that the vehicles were actually spinning inside the stone arch, not the sealed track behind the stone arch. And again, that's what people do if you're an Imagineer. You take something that's off the shelf and you make it brilliant. The ride itself did not open with a lot of capacity. The vehicles would have seats added later on to increase the capacity, but it never really met the demand, which again is something that you learn to accept when you buy something that's off the shelf. Because let's face it, the ride vendor is building for other parks, not Disney parks. It didn't matter if the ride ran forward or backward. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Peril more than exceed expectations for EDL.
On the day of the immediate event to open Temple of Peril, it was a lot like today. Cold, wet, rainy. But we had George Lucas over there, and I don't have him here. Anyway, long story short, when the birds were released from their cages, the first flock flew out of the cages and were promptly picked up by the wind and slammed against the temple. No matter, we had a second flock. The second flock, well, they left their cages, and a lot of them are rumored to have met a grim fate as they flew over those gas flames. Whether the story is true or not, we'll leave it up to you.
Indiana Jones was one of the 10 additional capacity programs that were begun as soon as Disneyland opened in Paris. Euro Disneyland opened successfully. It was crowded, and those crowds wanted something to do: ride, shows, and attractions. And another park noticed the success, and they wanted their version. As soon as Tokyo DisneySea opened to guests, the ports of call started to get ride, shows, and attractions that were either modifications, revisions, or in some cases, brand new. There's an area there beyond the entrance, beyond the volcano, and it's called the Lost River Delta. This land or port is home to the Indiana Jones ride in this park, which is the Crystal Skull. It's the same basic idea as the ride in Disneyland Anaheim, but with a different story and no flame. I do miss the flame. The restaurant is good, the theming is excellent, and they had a great airplane. They also had a piece of land, and based upon the success of Temple of Peril, well, they did their own version, Raging Spirits, which frankly has the best warning sign ever. The ride itself is a mirror image of the one in Paris, and they did some modifications of Q. They also did a whole new story without Indiana Jones, and they had an effects package which is incredible. The flipping of the Q caused an unintended consequence, which as a former Disney designer, I'm not a fan of. I believe very firmly that you always need to play fair with the guest. If it's a roller coaster with a launch or a loop, you need to show me. I don't want to get into a line that's 45 or 60 minutes and then suddenly discover at the very last second, oh, you want me to go upside down, or you want me to be launched. That's not playing fair with the guest. And it's something which I think that all designers should keep in mind as they sit down with pen and paper and start the process of design. A Q sign, even a great one, does not suffice to tell people what they're about to experience. Raging Spirits experience is very much like the one in France, although it's a little different because the theming, as I said, is better. They had more money to spend. They also have different views because you get to see out of the park. Unfortunately, you also see the hotels out of the park. But from the good side, you do get to see things that you want to see, as opposed to that hotel there that you don't want to see. But, well, close your eyes and it'll go away. The loop, as I said earlier, is hidden. You really don't see it until you're loading onto your ride vehicle, or even when suddenly you're aboard the ride, riding, and then you find yourself very quickly going upside down. One difference in Japan is the safety pathway. And the result of that is it makes the entire ride feel a lot more secure, because in Paris you have the sharp drop off to the ground. Here, not so much.
Hands down, Raging Spirits in Tokyo DisneySea has the best queue ever. I mean, if you're not impressed by dead, rotting skeletons, I don't know what else I can tell you. Also, what's interesting about that is those pits, well, I've seen Duffy's and Mickey Mouse hats and who knows what. Back to the topic of standard off-the-shelf rides. Mulholland Madness at DCA falls into that category. It's a standard mock Wild Mouse. Once a version of it was in Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, And that was then picked up and relocated to Tampa in that bush park. You could do that because it's a temporary portable ride. Now, the one in DCA has been there for, well, over 2 decades.
And the ride is showing its age. It looks like a ride that would be sacrificed for something else, something newer. But the reality is the space on which it's located is not very big. I mean, let's face it. If you look closely, you realize very quickly as you look down, the ride does not have a structure that's traditional. No, it's actually built on a table. The ground is leveled, it's compacted, and then the steel is laid, creating a steel table structure. And up from that is the track. So the whole thing, well, it looks portable because it is portable. It's fun, but it's common to see this type of catalog off the shelf ride move between parks, move between carnivals. It's common for this type of a ride to be assembled and then disassembled after 4 to 6 weeks to travel to the next location. And it'll go around the country until the fall or winter when it's taken down and put into storage for repair and repaint. When I was the creative director for the redo of Paradise Pier in DCA 2.0, I took inspiration from the Goofy shorts How to Play Golf and applied them to the idea of how to fly an airplane. This would be the story overlay, which admittedly is a simple story overlay, but I thought it would be good for a simple coaster like Mulholland Madness. There, I wanted to take down the map, which I didn't like because the map concealed the coaster. Remember what I said earlier about playing fair? Well, this was a good application of that principle. I wanted to take down the map so guests could see what the coaster experience was going to be. It is, after all, a wild mouse with some very steep drops, and it was very fast. It was a lot of fun. New story, new props, and new paint improve Mulholland Madness. But in the end, it's still that coaster carnival ride. Combining Indiana Jones with a standard off-the-shelf coaster shows how you can take a big idea, a big property, and with the right set of circumstances, create something of great value. Something of value that has delighted, amazed, and given guests a lot of thrill, now and for decades to come.
And on that note, I bring this episode of Disney Journey to an end. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe and join me on the next episode. For now, it's goodbye from a very wet and very windy Lost Canyon.